Picture this. You just sold out an arena. 50,000 people were screaming your name 2 hours ago. Now you're home at 6 a.m., negotiating with a 5-year-old who refuses to wear shoes. That's the real, unfiltered life of a surprising number of music's biggest names. Because underneath the Grammys, the private jets, and the sold-out tours, some of hip-hop, R&B, and pop's most famous parents are dealing with the exact same stuff the rest of us, our carpool lines, bedtime battles, and the constant low-grade panic of, am I doing this right? So today, we're talking about celebrity parenting. Real stories, real struggles, and a few surprising soft sides from some of the biggest artists in the game. We're covering hip-hop, R&B, and pop, 3 genres, 3 very different parenting styles, and a lot more in common than you'd expect. Let's get into it. Let's start with hip-hop, a genre built on bravado. But behind the scenes, some of its biggest stars are shockingly soft when it comes to their kids. Take Jay-Z. Here's a guy who grew up in Brooklyn without his father in the picture. For years, his music carried unresolved anger about that. Then he had kids of his own daughter, Blue Ivy, and later twins Rumi and Sir, and something shifted. He's talked openly about the fear that comes with fatherhood, the worry that he won't measure up, and the deliberate choice to break a cycle his own father never broke. Interestingly, becoming a father himself is also what pushed him toward forgiveness. In interviews, he's described finally understanding his own dad's choices with more empathy once he was raising kids of his own, less anger, more perspective. Watching Jay-Z's music evolve over 20 years is basically watching a guy figure out how to be a present dad in real time. Then there's Snoop Dogg, and this one might surprise you. Back in the early 2000s, Snoop was just a dad on the sidelines, frustrated with how his son's youth football team was being run. So he did what any reasonable global superstar would do. He became the coach himself. That decision turned into the Snoop Youth Football League, which has now put more than 60,000 kids through the program over 2 decades, several of whom went on to play in the NFL. Here's the detail that says everything about him as a parent. Snoop made a point of not personally coaching his own sons, so it would never look like favoritism. He wanted to be Coach Snoop to everyone equally, not just dad to his own kid. His oldest son, Cord, went through the league first, and his younger son, Cordell, followed, eventually becoming one of the most heavily recruited high school football players in the country, with Snoop showing up to practices and streaming games from wherever he was on tour. Snoop has said coaching gave him a completely different kind of closeness with his kids than fame ever could. And then, Cardi B. Now a mom of 4, Cardi has become hip-hop's most unapologetic tiger mom. Mandatory tutoring 4 days a week, piano lessons, sports, zero tolerance for laziness. She said flat out that she refuses to raise what people call Nepo babies, kids who coast because of their parents' fame and money. Her whole philosophy is that her kids need to build their own identity and their own work ethic, completely separate from who their parents are. Balance is basically his favorite word in interviews. He's talked repeatedly about wanting to be at every recital, every basketball game, every single milestone, while also headlining a Super Bowl halftime show and running a Vegas residency at the same time. Like Jay-Z, his own dad struggled with being present, and Usher has said that history is exactly why he refuses to repeat it. There's a great story about him showing up to his daughter's school career day and ending up giving her whole class a dance lesson. But it's not all sweet. He's also admitted his teenage kids sometimes ask him not to come to their events, simply because Usher showing up turns into a whole scene. Fame helps him be present. Fame also gets in the way. Both things are true. And Usher's balancing act spans 2 completely different life stages, at once 2 teenage sons from his first marriage and 2 toddlers with his current wife, which means diaper changes and college conversations are happening in the very same household, in the very same week. Finally, let's talk pop, where 2 artists in particular have built entire public personas around brutal honesty about parenting. Then there's John Legend and Chrissy Teigen, arguably the most publicly open couple in music when it comes to parenting. They've been through real heartbreak, a widely discussed pregnancy loss, and real joy, welcoming 4 kids in total. What makes them stand out is how relentlessly normal they seem despite the fame. Packed schedules of piano lessons, karate, vocal coaching. John has admitted, laughing, that he and Chrissy are that couple, the embarrassing ones who cheer too loud at school performances. They've both said that after the steep learning curve of their first 2 kids, they've gotten noticeably more relaxed with the younger 2, which, if you're a parent of more than 1 kid, is a universally relatable feeling. They also make a point of turning ordinary errands into memory sushi making classes, big group vacations, a whole vow renewal trip back to the Italian villa where they got married, kids in tow. For 2 people with genuinely massive careers, they've built a family life that looks almost aggressively normal. Pink is basically the queen of not caring what anyone thinks about her parenting. She's clapped back at online critics more times than anyone can count, whether it's about helmets, diapers, or letting her kids get a little wild. She and her husband, motocross racer Carrie Hart, run what she describes as a household with no labels, no rigid rules around gender, no obsession with looking perfect. She brings her kids on tour, so she's never away for long stretches. There was even a scary moment where both she and her young son caught a serious illness at the same time, which she's said put everything else in her life into perspective. After that, she started pulling back from posting quite so much about her kids online, tired of strangers picking apart every photo. Her message over and over boils down to this: kids don't need a flawless parent. They need a present one who's honest when they mess